So we have Jesus in Matthew 22 dealing with the resurrection and the Sadducees not believing in the resurrection. He says, you're mistaken not knowing the scriptures or the power of God, for in the resurrection they neither marry or are given in marriage. Concerning the resurrection of the dead, which they don't believe in. Have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So is what people say, oh, see, he's saying Abraham's alive. Case closed. No, he's saying Abraham and Isaac and Jacob will be made alive at the resurrection, which is what they don't believe in and what he's contending with. How do I know that's the case? Well, because I know that the Bible is not in contradiction with itself. Notice what Jesus says also in John. Because you don't believe that exegesis, because you're confused about what the resurrection of the dead is, which is an event on the last day when dead people come out of the graves, which is in John 5 also, by the way, when Jesus says that the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God and come forth. Those who have done good to the resurrection of life. In other words, he's talking about the second coming here, which is at the end of the age, the end of the world. There'll be a time of trouble since there never was from the beginning of the world. And at that time, Michael shall stand up. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall raise, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting contempt. He's talking about the end of the world, after the time of trouble. Jesus didn't do a resurrection if you take that to mean the destruction of Jerusalem, for goodness sake. How absurd. No one was raised forth after the Great Tribulation. Okay, so that's not my point, though. Here's the point. Into John 6. Let's see. What shall we do that we may do the works of God? Let's see. What sign will you perform for us that we may see it and believe you? What work will you do? Our fathers ate manna in the desert. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And Jesus said to them, most assuredly, I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the true bread is that which came down from God and gives life to the world. And they said, Lord, give us this bread always. And he said, I am the bread of life. Notice what it says here. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate manna in the wilderness and are dead. So let me ask you, is he saying everybody who ate manna, every single person that ate manna in the wilderness are dead? But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are alive, but all the Israelites are lost. Because surely, if by dead here he doesn't mean not alive, he means dead as in not like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob who are still alive. In contrast, no. Get the point? He describes people as dead, as in they haven't received the eternal life that is received through him. Not that they're lost, but how are we to interpret that if Matthew 22 is teaching that, in fact, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are alive? If everyone who ate manna in the wilderness are currently dead. Think about it. Jesus describes people, the Israelites that ate manna in the wilderness, are dead. The fathers, the ones that saved people, went to the same abode that they're in, right? Like when David is going to sleep with his fathers. Surely, if David's saved, The fathers are the patriarchs, the ones who ate in the wilderness. They are dead, according to Jesus. No, in Matthew 22, Jesus is saying there will be a resurrection because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are dead also. You guys, but concerning the resurrection of the dead, because they're not alive, because the Sadducees don't believe in a resurrection of the dead. Jesus is saying you're false. There is a resurrection from the dead, happens on the last day. And because God is the God of the living of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of course there is a resurrection from the dead on the last day, because he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they're dead, but they're going to be made alive because they have promises given to them. He's dealing with the fact that they don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, which has nothing to do with being alive after death. It has to do with being raised at the end of the age and God fulfilling his promises and his judgments. So not only does this not teach that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are in fact alive, you have misread the scriptures. You don't understand the scriptures if you believe that. If Jesus is consistent and Paul isn't teaching something false, this verse teaches that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are dead. And because of that fact, of course, there's a resurrection on the last day from the dead. Because those who ate manna in the wilderness are dead, just like there is a resurrection of the dead.